I was absolutely disgusted by what I saw on the video today. Well, I'll put a little clip in if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen it, I don't know where you've been. You haven't been following AFL this weekend.
Maybe you've been on a school camp with no reception, something like that.
That's the only explanation. But honestly, I was being driven. I was in the passenger seat when I saw the clip, and there's just no defending it at all. I was so disgusted. We didn't want to really talk about it before because we wanted to save it for the podcast. But in every other concussion MRO check that you've had, there's sort of some little maybe devil's advocate you can sort of
absolutely
play where there's a potential reason why it may have happened. We'll get to the Pal Pepper one in a second.
I'll talk about the Pal Pepper one.
But this, I just cannot see an excuse.
Yeah.
There it is. I'll let you speak in a second, but this is by far, in my most recent years of watching footy, the worst thing I've ever seen on a football field. And it's a preseason game where tension should be running too high, where you shouldn't really lose your head like this. An experienced player, 150 games plus. Yeah, well, I'll keep speaking soon, but I'll let you have a crack at this.
Yeah, with the Pal Pepper thing from last week, obviously he got 4 weeks. Port Adelaide appeared to be happy with that. Did not try to appeal it. And the Pal Pepper one was reckless. It was really obviously very high contact and really what's the word that they use in the MRO? Like it was very heavy contact. I forget the word that they use, but at least in his defense, it was moving at fast pace. There were a lot of bodies around, and the Hawthorn player got sort of slung into him,
which made the contact a little bit worse. I understand he didn't lead with his shoulder.
Yes, and either way, you shouldn't be leading with your shoulder. Shoulder charging is not a movement that is a valid way to tackle in the AFL, and so when you're doing, and the reason for that is that you leave yourself exposed for these situations. So obviously, I believe Pal Pepper should have got 4 weeks, and it was probably the right call. 4 weeks.
Yeah, they were happy with it.
I reckon that's probably around the right slot. But this Jimmy Webster situation, they were in a lot of space. They were Jy Simpkin was not crouched down or slung down like the Hawthorn player was last week. He was standing up tall. Jimmy Webster, it was late. We were discussing earlier.
It was so late.
We were discussing earlier. Every time you think about it, it just gets worse and worse. It was late. He had there was no way that he was trying to do anything legal there. That he was not trying to make any sort of legal contact.
He had time to make a decision about how he was going to bump or tackle or do anything else.
Leaves the air. The only way
leaves the air.
Leaves the floor, the ground. The only way he makes any contact with Jy Simpkin there is a shoulder to the head. He's not trying to make any other contact. And it was quite unbelievable.
It's the leaving the ground part that really gets me. There's a conscious thought that he's had to leave the ground, lead with a shoulder. And not even go for a tackle. I understand if he was a little bit late and he was like body on body, face tackle, and maybe it clips the shoulder on the front. That happens. But this is side on. His body is in the air, hits him dead on the shoulder, and Jy Simpkin's just out cold.
Yeah, Jimmy Webster's just got to hope that this doesn't leave the tribunal and go to the state courts. Because
the comment that we saw was bring back the death penalty. That's the one he highlighted. We obviously don't believe that, funny, but it was pretty funny. I'll be interested to see how many weeks he gets. I know Nathan Buckley came out and said if Pal Peppers was 4, this has to be minimum 8.
I said that there was no. The crazy thing about this was that there's no real rational defense for the action from Jimmy Webster, but the only thing I'd say, and it sort of applies to any hit on an AFL field, is that you're sort of expected and trained up to get really aggressive during the game, put in 100% at all times and get yourself fired up, go through a lot of contact and ignore the pain, blah, blah, blah. And it is a difficult thing to put aside, I guess, those animalistic instincts and balance that with making rational plays that fit within the laws, except... Look, that applies to any play and every other player in the league, and has been able to follow that. And this was just violent, to be honest.
There's a bump which leads to a 2-week suspension. Then there's this bump, which I don't think I've seen before, where there is zero excuse.
I guess the final thing we can say on this, without just ranting on and on, is how many weeks do you think it should be, and how many weeks do you think it will be?
Okay, I think. This has to be completely stamped out, and this Jy Simpkin. I know. it shouldn't be taken into account the player that it happens to. But I mean, he had 2 concussions last year. We just saw Brayshaw retire. We saw Paddy McCartan retire for the same reason. It's not a good look for him, and it's a terrible time for him as well.
Jy Simpkin concussed twice last year.
What I think it should be, I think it should be 12.
Yep.
I think it will be. I think 8 makes sense.
Okay. I think it should be about 15.
Okay.
But the last time we saw, just because there's no excuse for it, the last time I saw something, we saw something like sort of this serious was I think the Andrew Gaff on Andrew Brayshaw.
Okay. The reason he didn't win the Brownlow.
Yes, and to me, even there, while that was may have looked worse because it was a punch, it was accidental. Andrew Gaff has no record in his career of any dirty play. He's known by everyone to be this stand-up guy on and off the field, and he was clearly trying to punch Brayshaw in the chest or give him a little, which is still not good. But players do it to each other, and it was reckless, and he caught him on the chin.
Yeah.
This was intentionally violent.
Yes.
And so it's interesting how they're going to weigh that up, because sometimes just the optics of a punch looks worse. But I think they'll give him 10 weeks.
I think the only thing he's got going in his favour is Jy Simpkin did walk off the field by himself. That's the only thing he's probably got. They didn't get stretched off, and he was conscious.
Yeah, but I think the MRO might see this as an opportunity to say...
Lay down the law.
To say, we need to stamp this out. This has been an emphasis for quite a few years now. This is an incident where there is really nothing holding us back. It doesn't matter what penalty they give him. It's justifiable. They can make it as big as they want. And what defence does he have? I
think whatever he gets, I think it'd be terrible if St Kilda appealed it. Whatever he's given, regardless of how many weeks, I think it'd look bad on the club if they do appeal the decision. That's not true. If it is like 20, 25 weeks or something crazy like that, then fair enough.
Yeah, just go play another sport. Go play netball.
Because they might just argue, it's excessive, stamping down the law.
Yeah.
Anyways... let us know what you think down in the comments. We are disgusted by what I saw, and I've been looking forward to this chat for the last few hours. We're doing this on Sunday evening following the round of games.